So hi guys, I'm Goldberg, barrister and solicitor in Canada. I'm a lawyer who loves to teach. I did my NCAs in August 2010, so I'm kind of celebrating 10 years of my NCAs. So I'm so excited to share my knowledge and my experience and my difficulties, and of course my joys of learning and teaching with you guys, and be able to help you to understand that this subject is doable subject. So welcome to my NCA Property Law Masterclass. NCA Property Law is an amazing subject, but it's very, very overwhelming for students who come from a different regime because they have never understood the Canadian property law concepts. So Canadian property law concept has its very unique features. So when we look at the property law, there's some acts which we will be going through the property law to see how different property provisions have been used, and we will also try to understand the common law component of property law. The common law component of property law, origin of the property law, if somebody is coming from England, law schools, say from they're from Liverpool, Sussex, Leicester, I found their courses are more in connection with Ontario courses, or for example Canadian courses. They are easy, it's easy for them to grasp this concept. Where if somebody's coming from India, or somebody's coming from France, somebody's coming from China, because they come from an evolved system of property law and they don't learn the basics of property law the way over here we are learning. So the basics of property law over here we are learning, the understanding the nature of property law. This is my pen, it's my property, right? Supposing this file is my piece of property, it's my land, right? So property law is about the physical piece of property, which is like real property. So this is my land and this is, I own it, right? So first of all, in this course, we will understand how one can acquire a land and property, correct? For example, this can be gifted to me. I can buy it. I can take a lease and use it for some time. You can give me permission to do something that would be licensed. It can be, you can just allow me to pick apples in your backyard. That can be an easement, right? So property law, we will try to understand what type of rights in a piece of property one can acquire and how, right? So for example, if I'm owner of this piece of property, then we will see how me and Rekha can own it, correct? So there is an ownership, joint ownership, correct? Then we have shared ownership, and how these shared ownership have been transferred and how the property transfer from one person to another. Then we will try to understand the basics of the land registration in our country, and we slowly learn through the process like how priorities work, how we work in a case of particular land in the registry system and in the older system. So when we are in the property law, the property registration simply means the government has a system to see who is an owner, and they keep the record of everything. That record keeps changing through the law. So if I am selling this, supposing we are talking about a physical piece of property, so if I sell it to Rekha, then Rekha will become owner of it. So just because Rekha has paperwork from me, that's not enough, right? Rekha has to make sure that title is duly transferred to her. So property law will be talking about the proper transfer of the piece of property from one person to another, and we'll go through the different routes to do so. So we have a registry act. For example, if we are talking about the Ontario, then we are talking about the registry act. We are talking about the LRRA, which is a modern system, and we'll see how transfer of title is happening in those systems, right? So the basic understanding of property laws, I have seen people, even I was overwhelmed when I was doing any exam in my life, right? I was like, oh my God, this is my syllabus. The best part of any piece of, syllabus is let it talk to you, break it down, see. For example, if we're talking about the property, of course, we're talking about the physical land. I may be a farmer owning a land. I may be an old lady owning big estate, correct? Or I can be living in a city and owning a house, right? I can have a commercial building, I can have a park. So own a park for public purposes. I can make a park on my property and allow people to use it. So first thing to understand is what type of piece of property we're talking about, right? So many students try to chase the answers, like, oh, how would I answer it? Don't worry about that at this moment. That's a very inherent thing to follow from the knowledge. First, try to absorb it, what they're trying to tell us, right, in the system. So of course, when we come to Canada, most of us from international background, even if we are local students and we go to England and do some courses, we come back and do go through the international trained lawyer route, and the property law is one subject which we stumble and we kind of worry a lot, right? Because there is less information. So the purpose of this masterclass is to make you feel comfortable with the subject, ask your question about how to do this exam, and or if you have any specific question around that. I know syllabus is quite overwhelming. It's not easy to navigate through, but the first tip I have for you is try to see what are you in every subject. Try to see with whom you're dealing. Over here, you're not dealing with a person, basically. You're dealing with a physical piece of property. And this physical piece of property can belong to Gul in many ways. Gul can be an owner, Gul can be a license holder, Gul can be a leaseholder, Gul can have an easement on this, and there can be other equitable interest on this piece of property. So in all these situations, you have to help me to see whether what I do have is legally available as per the Canadian property law or not. So if we look at this syllabus page number 2, you will see they require us to understand the legal doctrines. They try to teach us how the principles of applicable to possession work, and then we'll see how to navigate through that, right? So we learned about how we can sever the rights in a piece of property, and we will see how, if I want to get rid of somebody's right, how would this right would continue in this, right? So next thing we will learn in the property law is how the sources of the Canadian property law came into the picture, and we will also learn that if we are talking about a piece of property in Alberta, that may have a different way of working, and if we have a property in Ontario, we have the severance of mining rights and the surface right in our country, in our province. So next thing we have is what are the legal boundaries of the property, right? So how much I own, right? So that is one component of the subject matter in our class, and then if we are in the actual proper course class, we will be going through all the key components of the case law. So case law, sometimes we might use an 1867 case or 1925 case to see how this basic concept was developed. So right now, you should not be worried about how to answer a question, or how to develop a legal analysis on that. So right now, your focus should be on the absorbing the property law syllabus and try to see what they're trying to teach us. So basically, it's about the relationship of a person with a piece of property, correct? And see how a person can have a piece of property. Supposing this is my highlighter and I used in this master class, and I want Candice to learn, carry on my classes further, and I will say, you know what, Candice, now this highlighter would be part of every master class you do, right? So it means how a covenant can run with the land in the same way. So we'll see what type of things can run with the land, and they would basically go on, and we'll see how property can have something stick to it, correct? For example, it can be covenant running with the land in the form of easement or some specific purpose of the use of the land, or it can be a license, right? So ownership is the primary relationship of a person to a piece of property, but sometimes people don't have ownership, they simply have possession. So then we will also learn if Candice keep this highlighter, for example, for a certain amount of time, can she become owner of this highlighter? That would be an adverse possession. So then the basic understanding is going through the different, see the rules regarding that, and then we'll see how the cases, how the case law has developed from the common law and how far we have departed from the common law in our country to develop our own property law. And of course, our property law is as per 9213. Every province make section 9213 of the Constitution of Canada. Every province make their own rules. That's why we have the variation throughout the country in the property law as well. But the basic criteria remains the same. So we will use the cases as we go along in the course, and we'll learn things. Next thing we have over here is we will learn how originally Aboriginal people, they have their own unique relationship with the property. If you go with their definition of property, that's the most beautiful thing, in any culture they can say. They never thought something which is immortal can own something, something which is mortal can own something which is immortal. So their criteria of and logic behind the property law is, I'm here to use this land and water and mountain and the tree. You are also here to use this mountain and the water and the tree and the land. So we can both share. So I can give you, I want to use it, I don't want to own it. But still they have their certain concept as per the treaties what they have. But if we look at the relationship of their relationship with the land, that is the most, I would say, as per global citizenship understanding, that is the most beautiful relationship with the piece of land, right? Because they believe it's for the purpose of our use, and if they are using it, the crown can use it, right? They never understood the title the way the title in the more commercially exploitable sense. But still there are certain treaties in which we will go and we will see what they have the title, what was their commercial aspect, is if it is still intact with them, and then we will see what are the rights and nature of those titles, and then we'll see what cases as per Supreme Court of Canada has laid down in this. And of course, when we are talking about common law, the third component is, in the common law we will always go with equitable interest. Favorite thing about the common law is it has all the principle of equities developed from it, and then we will also learn from property law component how this can be used and how it can be implemented. Now, if you guys have any question, and I would be happy to answer your questions in that.
Is it a very, very difficult subject to go with? Because to what I understand and what the precedents, my friends have told, that they have a lot of failure rates and all those things. So because of that, it's a very dry subject. You don't have the inclination to learn as well. And
no, I think it's end of the day, if you have been not taught it interestingly, anything can be boring, right? So I hope in my class you find that it's funny. I enjoy. I have passion and I love teaching.
It's like when the concepts are clear to you, you will be in a position to write the exam according to you.
Right. So I'm here to help you to, have that comfort level with the concepts. So when you look at something, you'll be like, yeah, I know this is license. I know this is this. And so I have my notes.
This particular class that you're starting is for the October batch that you're starting?
Right. I'm always doing it from last 8 years, but this time because I get booked and people don't have opportunity to learn how the way I work. Right. So one of my student, is arranging all this, and she said, I want you to put you out there so that people can learn and have the comfort of and joy of learning. Right. Because the worst part of being busy is you are not approachable to others. Right.
I know.
Right.
But then it's a very short period of time. So that's why I was thinking.
I know everything in life is just around the corner. COVID came. And throw us off the cliff without even realizing that it's right around the corner, right? We don't know what's around the corner, right? But I love this subject. I love teaching it. I love all the NCA subjects. And
when is what's the course fees, ma'am, if you could tell us?
That would be my courses where my staff is working on that, and they will be sending emails to everybody who's interested to join, because I'm joining my second series of the classes. But trust me, it's a doable subject. Believe in yourself You'll play around it, and when you play around it, it makes it easier.
Oh, that's a good way to take it.
So I have a comment. I think that just what you've said in terms of making it relevant to everyday life, I think that will make the subject a lot more interesting, right? We all live in a house.
Right.
We all own something.
Right. And you have a plumber coming in your house that's licensed, right?
Exactly.
And I need a home office, and you'll say, Gul, you can come and do the tutoring at my house. And that would be a lease, right?
That's it. And it's I'm not sure whether it's covered from this, but we also lease a car. We buy a car, we buy property, we do that.
Right. So we will be talking about over here, we will talking about the immovable property. We'll be talking about the farm, we will be talking about an estate, and we will play. And Candice, and if you join our classes, we will make you pretend like a rich lady.
Wouldn't that be great?
Right, like in Downton Abbey, right?
I have an estate.
I have an estate. Matthew, do this with the estate.
Servitude and
Yes, yeah.
So I think, so I'm from a South African background, and I think from a lot of things that you were saying now sounds very familiar.
But still, we have to like correlate what we have back home and be able to, correlate with what we are learning over here, right?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the concepts that we've learned are true. So so being from a Commonwealth country, I think South Africa and Canada, they share a lot of things. Maybe India does too. I remember India and South Africa, there's a lot of laws that are very familiar.
Very familiar, and they're very similar, I would say, because they are all based on common law, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I've worked with many Indian lawyers, and South African lawyers and Indian lawyers have a very similar style and approach to law as well. So I get that. And
So you bumped him to another Indian trained lawyer in your property law class, right?
Love it.
Thank you.
My ex-boss that I worked with for many years, she's an Ontario-trained lawyer, but also from Pakistan. And I'm sure Pakistan and India...
We have the similar, yes, system.
So I come from that sort of background where she's trained me up for the last 6 years, and she understood where I was coming from, bridged me up to Canada, so that's great. So anyway, I think to me you've made this very interesting.
Thank you.
Rebecca said it's a very dry subject. It can be, but
I love. You won't believe it. Like if you see my students' bar exam notes, we have the hilarious examples. Like mother.
So actually, my aspiration for a long time was to be a conveyancer in South Africa. So it would have been a pure property lawyer. So
right. No, I would be inviting my property law lawyers to teach us some subject as well. So some components I would be having volunteer my students who are running real estate practices, and they'll be happy to answer your questions in the classes. That's what I try to do. I would bring my criminal law student to come and ask you practically how things work, how bail works, what to expect on a bail, right?
And so you say the syllabus also only deals with immovable property, not movable property?
No, it's more like about perpetuities and all this about like the physical piece of property.
Okay.
Ma'am, one question. Is it very similar to transfer of property which we had back home?
No, transfer of, yes, but transfer of property is just one component in this.
Okay.
Because that's one component. It means how, remember I told you like if Candice is buying my house or Candice is buying this thing, right? So she would not want me to just rely upon the paperwork, and we will go in Ontario. We have Registry Act, we have LRRA under which the registration work. That's what the transfer of property. That's one component of our subject.
Okay, so
you can register real rights against the title.
Right. Or you can actually have a title. You can actually have the title transferred from me, right? So remember in the beginning I told you this is my piece of property I own, right? This is not you are looking at my farm in the 3D concept, okay? This is not my file. This is my farm. This is my 400-acre farm.
What are you farming?
Blueberries.
My kids would love that.
Rekha, are we back? Are we on the point?
Yeah.
No, so Sadie, you are very quiet. We need your participation.
So is it something like property law is different in each and every state, or it's
over here we have, since property is as per section 9213 is province can make law as per the property, right? For the properties. So they are property registration. They have their own proper system. So mostly we have a digital. It's similar in principle, but yet it's a little bit different, right? So we cannot say the law from Ontario would work in Alberta or law from Alberta would work in BC or Manitoba. It doesn't work like that. They have their own systems.
So
But
how will we
are you
approach
sure
the-
it's really doable?
It's
So how
doable.
will we? So that's a very good question, Rekha. So how should we approach the exam? And
They
study for
in
the
all the
exam?
exams by default you learn Ontario system.
Okay.
But in case laws, we'll be visiting to Alberta, we'll be visiting to Manitoba because we'll be learning about,
Okay.
you know, how oil. So in Ontario, we have mining rights severable from the land, right? But in Alberta, it didn't happen in the same way because you had the land and then you had the oil as well. That's how you became rich, right? But in Ontario, the government already reserved the lands. If Ontario produces a mined amethyst, and if you buy this chunk of, get this big chunk of amethyst, you can't own it. Too bad, Candice.
You can't.
Because mining rights are with the government, surface rights is with the government. Then we learn how surface and subsurface work, right?
That's interesting. Okay.
So then we will be visiting the Alberta cases and we'll see how people became rich over there overnight because they had the mining rights.
So a lot of that like stems from South Africa, and I'm sure India as well. So the government caught on in South Africa that these international people were coming in and buying land in South Africa and mining it out and making a fortune.
Right. So in Ontario we have all the mining rights always by default given to the crown, right?
Yeah.
So we will be learning, visiting these kind of principles, as we go along, and then we'll be doing.
And the questions that they ask in the test, will we? I wrote a couple of exams last week, and it was a little bit difficult because one would expect them to give you hints in the questions of,
But I think more you
sort of
understand. I never chased answers throughout my life.
Okay.
So I always believe in kind of learning things, and I think the answering questions and all that stuff just comes automatically, flows through you.
Okay.
So I believe in that. That's my motto of life. And then we can discuss questions towards the end and we can say, oh, this is what they need us to know, right?
And your course, when do you offer it? How often and how long will it take?
So it depends. It would be around 8 classes.
Okay.
But I keep it flexible to give.
So it's an hour class?
It's an hour class, or we'll see. Develop. My staff has the notes and everything. How we'll be splitting it. Sometimes it will be 1.5 hour or 1 hour, but 1 hour 15 minutes they'll split the course. So we'll do
And it's over the weekend or
over
during
the
weekdays?
weekends
Over the weekend.
or in the evening, so that everybody is available at that time.
Yeah, because I struggle with the 4-hour class over a week.
No, that's not. It has to be split. We have to absorb it. That's not workable for anyone. We need
So
to.
one more thing, ma'am, you said that it's doable. So right now that when I'm thinking that I can do, is it like contract and property can be done together or it's only one?
I've
that
worked with students who work 7 exams in one go. I don't see. I teach bar exam, and I wrote my both bar exams together, and I'm working with always students who are writing bar exams together, both barrister and solicitor. That takes like more than whole of NCA. They are doing that in one go, right? So I don't see anything. It's like once you know things, you know this, right? You can simply go and argue it. That's my
I
idea
think
for.
if I may say, like, I feel like property and contracts, Rekha, they complement each other very nicely.
Very nicely. They complement each other very nicely because you see how because property we need to have a contract to give it to you, right?
Yeah, if you were doing, I don't know, contracts, or if you were doing property and, I don't know, criminal law, okay, maybe it doesn't
Maybe they're
complement each other.
overwhelming,
But
right?
I think
For criminal
should-
evidence, they make very good complement to each other.
To make you feel better, Rekha, I'm writing 4 in October. I've got a full-time job and 2 children, so
I have two too as well. So one is 7 and another one is just 1.
Yeah,
That's
mine
beautiful. But
too.
you know what? Having a toddler makes your life different because they irritate you less. They are
Put
if
the
you're
TV on, we
put your
good.
TV on, they hug you
Yeah,
better.
we're
They
good.
believe you are the best, and they
No, my daughter is like too much. My son was never so naughty. My daughter is, she doesn't allow me to even sit for now. Now that I have given her to my husband, I have closed the door and I'm sitting here.
no. We can always we are moms, and we can. I did my NC.
We can do it.
We can do it.
absolutely do it.
And which
Obviously,
what else you're writing, Candice?
Pardon?
Which else what else exam you're writing?
So I've registered for contracts, property, foundations, and admin.
You were not in my admin class.
I know, I missed it. I said to my husband this afternoon, I said, oh dear, the admin class was last night, right?
Right.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so we'll be no,
I
I'll see you
know
guys in my
it's-
contract law class. Thank you very much for joining Canadian Law Tutor in this property law class, and I hope you enjoyed learning it and you feel inspired and you want to do this exam with more passion and strategy. And if you want to know more about my classes, please drop in me an email and I'll be happy to teach you this course.